After seeing Joker 2, I have to say that I have never before seen a sequel that so thoroughly dismantles everything that its predecessor did. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll be talking about heavy spoilers, so this is your warning. Joker 2, and no, I'm not calling it Folie A Deux, is a movie that did a lot of things well, but failed on the most fundamental level. The two lead actors are very talented people who turned in great performances, and the visual and technical elements of the movie worked well for me. But by having Arthur Fleck abandon his Joker persona, turning him back into a timid victim, and ending his story with him getting violated by the guards and shanked by a random prisoner, Todd Phillips made a very intentional decision to definitively end this story with Arthur in the same place he was in the original Joker movie. There are a growing number of people online who are defending this movie, saying that the people who hated it just didn't get it. The analysis is that it was a story about a mentally ill man who tried to hide behind a false identity, but it ultimately grew into something that was too big for him to handle, so he abandoned it. It was a story about Arthur, not the Joker. Harley Quinn, along with Joker's other disciples, represent the movie's main audience, who wanted to watch the Joker tear Gotham apart, only to be disappointed and abandon him when he turned his back on that identity. The thing is, I agree with this analysis. It's not that I didn't get what the movie was trying to say, it's that I don't think it was executed well. Joker 2 wasn't satisfying as a viewer, it made the whole journey seem like a waste, and it was an outright insult to its own audience. The original Joker was a small budget film that made $1 billion. The majority of viewers, including myself, loved it. But the controversy surrounding it had to do with the idea that it glamorizes a violent, psychotic killer. Joker 2, along with its defenders, almost seemed to have a holier-than-thou attitude toward anyone who loved the first movie, and saying, "Look how stupid you people are for loving such an evil character." Here's the thing though, the people who loved the first movie don't see the Joker as a role model. They enjoy watching him because he's so fascinating. We recognize how evil it was when he killed all those people in the first movie, but the entire point of the first film was seeing exactly what drove him to that point. It had powerful messages about a mentally ill man who was ignored and couldn't get the help he needed. A man who cried out for help and only got kicked to the ground in return. We can sympathize with him to a certain degree, and even though his actions as the Joker were horrific, there's a level of catharsis to seeing him gain so much confidence and fight back against the society that hated him and abused him. You can write a corrupted character in a way that's balanced and satisfying, without condoning their actions. In a way that allows the audience to sympathize with them while also despising the things they do and who they become. This brings me to Walter White, AKA Heisenberg. This is a character whose downfall was so well written and thorough, and it made Breaking Bad one of the greatest shows, if not the greatest show of all time. Much like Arthur Fleck, Walter White was a timid, unassuming man who was dealt a really bad hand in life. He turns to extreme measures in order to help his family survive, and creates an alternate identity that gives him extreme levels of confidence, ultimately ending with chaos surrounding him, violence, and his death. But unlike Arthur Fleck, who turned away from the Joker, Walter leans more and more heavily into his Heisenberg persona as the show goes on. He thrives and becomes filled with life like never before, but we eventually see the destruction and the sacrifices that have to happen because of this. He loses not just his entire family, but his humanity. As a viewer, it's very cathartic when he finally admits to Skyler in the series finale that he did everything for himself and that he felt alive for the first time in his life. He's obviously not a hero or a role model, as he does a lot of horrific things late in the show, but his character is so fascinating to watch that we can't help but want to follow every step of his journey and his descent into corruption. This doesn't make the viewer a bad person for enjoying the story, it simply means that the story is compelling and that Walter White is an extraordinarily well-written character. This is why I have a big problem with how Joker 2 was executed. You can develop a corrupt character and create an interesting story around them, but Todd Phillips seemed to choose the easy way out by simply hitting the reset button and reverting him back to his timid, lonely state. Sure, you can argue that it's more realistic, but it doesn't make for a satisfying story. Could you imagine if that happened to Walter White? Imagine he never builds his drug empire in the first place. Imagine he never has his epic showdowns with Gus Fring or with Jack and his gang. Imagine that the show ends in season 2 with Tuco forcing Walter to go to Mexico, and then the series ends with some random guy stabbing him to death. That's a version of the show that would have left viewers feeling like their time was wasted, and that's exactly how a lot of people felt walking out of Joker 2, myself included. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a good one.